Hello, strategy game fans. I am Rob from Explominate, and I'm here today with Steve Hawkins from Kathawk Studios. Welcome to the show, Steve.
Thank you for having me, Rob.
Hey, so we're about to dive into Alliance of the Sacred Sons. You're going to show me a little bit about gameplay and kind of walk me through it. But before we do that, could you tell me a little bit about what makes Alliance of the Sacred Sons special or unique?
Sure. A lot of 4Xs, they focus a lot on the big picture, but very few focus on the actual emperor themselves. They've always been kind of a gray eminence, and there's really not a lot of detail about who you're supposed to play or who you're supposed to be. It's always more about the high level empire management. And so I always thought a fun 4X would focus a lot more on the emperor's duties. What does an emperor do? How do they run their empire? What issues do they have? Do they have people in the court that talk back to them? What happens if they get assassinated? That's just stuff you never really see in these 4X games, and so that's been kind of a passion project over the last 7 or so years. We've come really close to what I think is a really great blend of 4X, RPG, and grand strategy, and we've really taken pains in the last year or so to really emphasize the RPG element.
Excellent. Well, with that being said, I think we should just dive into gameplay and take a guided look. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's do it. All right, Steve, we are here with Alliance of the Sacred Sons now, and we begin our new reign. Walk me through it.
All right. Well, as you can see, we have, if you've been playing Alliance for a while or have tried the demo, we have a completely different setup process now. As we continue to pivot to the RPG part of things, we really want players to understand the cultures and really understand their strengths and opportunities, and also to understand what cultures get along with each other. As you can see, Neo-Americans get along with most everybody. Well, Spartak, there's a fair amount of red there, but they do get along with Neo-American as well. So certain cultures will have affinities towards each other. So essentially, cultures are there's six primary cultures. The basic story is that humanity was kicked off Earth by a species of aliens called the Zill, and they were kind of teleported to another part of the Milky Way, and so they kind of grew for about 500 years and continued to improve their technology. And after about 500 years, humanity is quite advanced. They created what's called the Terran Alliance, kind of protect and administer humanity. And that's when the Zill found them again. And essentially, humanity beat them to a stalemate, but it cost them most of their outside colonies and a lot of their technology and most of their ships. And so humanity was set back several hundred years. And so what formed out of that was the Celestial Empire and the six remaining cultures that kind of made that up. So that's how the Great Houses formed. It was really just out of necessity. And so now in the present, these six cultures kind of dominate the empire. So from a gameplay standpoint, it's important to pick a culture that matches your play style because they have different strengths and opportunities. Some are going to be good at farming, some are going to be good at mining, but not good at farming. Some are going to be good at warfare, but not good at administration, government, science. So you really want to pick a culture that matches how you want to play in the game and how you want to rule. Because a big part of the game is, if your culture isn't good at something, one of the other great houses will be, and you're probably going to need their help if you can't come up with that deficit yourself. So for a new player, I usually recommend either Neo-American, Technic, or Mercantile. Neo-American is good at pretty much everything, particularly government and farming. Technic is good at science and energy, and Mercantile is typically good at mining and economics. So you can kind of read a little bit about them, but I always encourage players to pick a culture that they kind of connect with.
Yeah, I connect with the Neo Americans, so we're going to do it.
Okay, so you pick Neo-American. So next, you can kind of tweak your banner. You can tweak your name of the house. You can pick a name at random, or you can pick one of the historical names, and then you can also put in a saying. Every house has kind of a small slogan. It's kind of fluff, but for our role-playing purposes, it's kind of fun. You can also change your house sigil, your banner. There'll be more choices as we get closer to early access release. Just, again, something that people like to play with. So once you kind of have that set to your heart's content, just click on Confirm Selection, and you go to the next screen, which is the archetype. So this is where it diverges a little bit from how we used to have the setup. Before you'd have 120 points, and you'd put them all into the traditions of the house. Farming, mining, economy, science, military, that kind of stuff. And while that was cool, and it gave you a great deal of freedom, it had two major issues. Number one is you could make a house that had nothing to do with the culture that you picked. You could pick Technic and have zero or very minimal points in science, and that didn't really make sense. And the other thing, especially for new players, there's really not a lot of direction over what to pick. You have all these traditions, but what's good? Is farming good? Is mining good? Should I do, government? I don't know. So these archetypes kind of give you a little bit more background, and they kind of give you a better jumping in point. Here you see we have the Way of Businessman, Frontier Spirits, and Soul Blessed Neo America. And you can see that they have sort of strengths, focus in economic with a side of farming, and so on and so forth. So I recommend either Soul Blessed Neo America or the Way of Businessman, just because economy and government are very important, especially for a newer player.
Right. Yeah. From my time with this game, I know that government's really important for me, at least with my playstyle. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that.
Okay. All right. So now you get to pick your emperor. And so we have another exciting. So this is where normally you'd be able to customize the traditions. You can see on the left, those are your current traditions. You will actually be able to, in the next build, be able to take away points to add to others within a certain limit. Not too much, but you'll be able to tweak it a little bit. So what's cool here is you are the first to actually show this part. We have male, female, and now what's called Freem. Freems are bioengineered humanoids that have both X and Y chromosomes. And what's really cool about this part, Rob, is that, and this is kind of how we close the loop, in the RPG loop. So the type of character you play will have an impact on how characters interact with you and how difficult your game is, especially depending on the culture. For example, if you play as a Spartic Freem, that's a very tough game because Spartics do not value, bioengineered, humans, and so you're going to have a very tough time, sort of, not only with the other cultures, but with your own, and so it makes the game a little bit more difficult. And the other thing we've added to this, and you'll see it when you select a gender, is you'll be able to select your personality type, and that also has an effect on the game. So if you go ahead and decide who you want. All right, so now you have a core personality. So there are two, you have an internal personality, and this is something that is really a big part of the game, and again, is part of the RPG element. So you have the concept called guilt. So right now, you have three tiers. You have humanity, honor, and piety. And right now, you have very, very low scores in all of them. Sorry, I haven't been tooltipped yet. We just added a screen today. But you can see an itty bitty little triangle in there. That means that you have very low values in all of them right now. You're a soulless psychopath. So what that means is if you do something inhumane, or you do something impious, or you do something dishonorable, it's not going to affect you very much because you're already, you don't care. But let's say, go ahead and click on Customize Personality. You can start putting in points. Now you see you have a rain difficulty score. Right now it's very low because guilt doesn't affect you much. But once you start pumping up, let's make you an honorable, humanistic person. And you can kind of see, you can put in points, and you see your personality will start to change. And the more points you put in, the harder your game gets. And you see your personality type will also start to change. There's 64 different archetypes in the game. And they depend on the interaction of these three values. So the way guilt works, essentially, is the higher your score, let's say you do something dishonorable, and your honor score is very high. So you're going to add a lot more guilt. And guilt is something that takes points off what's called spirit. Spirit is basically your mental health. And the more guilt that you have, the lower your spirit will drop every turn, unless you do something about it. And there are things that you can do. You'll be able to have events that kind of reorient your internal values. And there'll also be events that take away some of that guilt. So you can manage it to a point. But when you have these high values, it makes guilt much harder. And it also makes interactions much more difficult, because now when you have characters with low piety, low humanity, low honor, you're automatically not going to get along with them as well. as you would if they had the higher value. So characters get along better with personalities that they match or are similar with. This is also fairly new in the game. We haven't really modeled this personality difference yet, so this has it as well. Um, so essentially, the more points you put into your personality, the nicer a person, the better a person you are, the more difficult it is to keep your guilt low and to keep your spirit high. Just kind of like it is in the real world. If you're a really good person and you do something that's even a little bit bad, you harbor guilt over that, and it really affects you. And if you were to kill someone and you had, high humanity, it would just devastate you, because that's just not who you are. And it would, the guilt of that action would just eat you alive. So it kind of constrains you in some things that you would otherwise do. And this is a big part of Alliance, in that now you really have to think about, oh, well, I can just assassinate this house leader that I don't like. Well, if you have a high honor or a high humanity, like, you can do that, but you're going to take a huge guilt hit, and your spirit is going to suffer for many, many, many years. And so it's just a way to kind of think a lot more carefully about how you act.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like it a lot. So I'm just to kind of keep things a little bit simple for me and to reduce my difficulty here. I'm gonna just put a point in humanity and honors just so that I'm not a sociopath, and then
Okay.
and move forward.
Okay. All right. And then that's the last step. So you'll confirm selection, and this will take you straight to the lows. We for now we've taken away the quadrant size. We've really kind of retconned some of the story and systems and the tech and the projects. And so you're starting from kind of a simpler base than earlier versions of the game, when you had just everything thrown at you, and it's like, okay, what do I do now? So um, now we have a pretty full encyclopedia. We are going to be adding a UI um, tour in the next version, where it's already written. And we're also going to be adding, like, say, the rain system, which acts as a tutorial and is sort of your ultimate objective. Um, so I'll kind of let you look at things, and you can kind of ask me questions as you go.
Right. So I know that the encyclopedia is really, really thorough. I know that it looks like you've actually given it quite the overhaul too. Wow, this
Yeah,
looks great.
yeah. Thank you. We knew a game like this would require a pretty thorough um, encyclopedia, and we know people aren't going to jump in and read everything, and that's not the point. The point is to just learn the basics. Go through the UI tour. When you go to a new screen, you'll get a pop-up saying, this is what it does, this is what you can do here, and then you can turn those off. And I actually recommend doing that, just because I'll be taking you through a lot of what you need to do. But then the kind of the apex of the game, which will actually be in the next build, is the rain score. And essentially, in the campaign, this is how you win the game, or this is how you um, you know determine how well you do. So, Rob, you've played a lot of 4Xs, right? One or two in your life?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, one of the most frustrating things of a lot of 4Xs is that cleanup period, sort of after the mid part of the game, where you're just kind of like, okay, I know who won, either me or someone else. And now it's just kind of way out of hand, and I'm just kind of limping along to see how it ends. And that's something I've always not liked so much about 4X games. And I know games like Stellaris can go, thousands of years, and they're quite a bit more epic. But what we wanted to do was tell kind of a story about this one reign. And so the idea was, by having this series of goals, essentially you have 6 categories of goals in 4 different tiers. You have mastery of self, you have economy, you have exploration, you have science, you have security, which is kind of like military and intel, and then you have basically domestic. And so these 6 sort of areas of all things empire and yourself, you have increasing goals. And you have a tier 1 goal will always be like a tutorial goal. Be something basic. Start a science project, or research something, or create a construction project, or what have you. And it kind of teaches you the aspects of the game. And then the more tiers you go, and the more objectives you complete, you gain rain score points. And there's a multiplier, again, based on your difficulty level, which you set in part by what kind of character you play. So your rain score is composed of your power at the end of the game, deeds that you've accomplished relative to your humanity, piety, and honor, and your rain deeds. I'm sorry, your rain um, activities, the ones that you do on the score. So, and there's about 20 to 25 different ranks. And our goal, what's cool about it, is that this will be on a server. We're going to have it on a, you'll actually have it on a public server, to where when you complete a game unmodded, your score will go on the leaderboard if you want. You don't have to. You can opt out. And you'll be able to compete against everyone else that's playing to see basically how high a score you were able to attain. And there's some really cool ranks. So, that kind of keeps it fresh. You feel like even in the late game, people are going to want to kind of continue to strive for some of the higher level rain goals. And plus, it's not a game where you can colonize everything on the map. There is no way you are ever going to be able to explore the entire map and colonize it and put it all in the sea of purple. You just won't have time, and that's by design. You're going to have to make a lot of hard choices about what you do. You have the action points, which kind of limits what you do, and you kind of have to pick a strategy and stick with it. And you have enough time to sort of pivot if things aren't going well. But you're not, it's not like Total War or those kind of games where your goal is to just, color the map. So we hope that players find that interesting and find the focus kind of a little bit more compelling to keep their interest throughout the different phases of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, we're here on our first turn, and I see some of these boxes up here. It looks like there's basically like some direction on what I should be doing. Now, what do I do on my first turn?
So the first thing you should do, go ahead and close that. The first thing I always do is go to your house nexus. This will tell you it's the third from the. Yep, there you go. So this shows you the houses that are in the game, and you can just go ahead and just hit don't show these anymore next time it comes up.
Okay.
But like I said, that's what tells a player like what each screen does. Excuse me. So you see that you have relationships with each of these houses, and they're right below. You have a relationship with their house leader, which is the icon that's on the lower left of their portrait, and then below that, this is the relationship you have with the house directly. So as you can see, you're in pretty good shape with Iloa. Y'all are cooperative, but you're having tension relations with Halcyon, Kirli Finn, and Van Rigel, and you're neutral um, with Lang. So that's your Spartak house. I found that it's always good to try to keep good relations with your Spartak house. They tend to be very militant, and they will declare war on you if they don't like you. And they tend to have the biggest militaries in the game, other than maybe your own house. So, so this is kind of an overview. I think, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And I'll show you. And if you go ahead and get out of this screen, just right click. If you go down to the little Vizier, Grand Vizier icon, it's right next to the Science Nexus on the right of the Science Nexus. Keep going right, keep going, keep going. It's out of the next side. There you go. There you go. So this gives you, go ahead and click on it. So this gives you a top level view of your strengths and opportunities right now. So right now, you've got a good energy stockpile. There's no riots, always great. And you don't have any enemies. Enemies are defined as houses that are either hostile or at war with you. So you don't have any of that. However, you don't have a lot of budget points. You only have 9, and the budget points are how you set your budget, and that's every 8 turns. You have to go in and appropriate your points to different parts of the empire. 9 is not very many. You'll have to borrow from your treasury. And then your basic materials is pretty low. Anything under 2,000 is not very high. Basic materials are used for almost everything in the game as far as building, for doing what are called projects, which is how you improve your planets and systems and provinces. They're used to maintain infrastructure on planets. They're used for trade. They're basically used for almost everything. So you can see here, you do have a positive inflow. You yourself are not making any basic, because that's not one of your strengths. Remember, you picked a house that was a little bit more about administration. So you got to rely on Lang and Van Rigel to kind of help bring in their basic materials. Iloa is bringing up a little bit, and normally they're pretty good at mining, but that's something you may have to look at and go, okay, why aren't they mining more? So they may need a little bit of a nudge. So if you look at the different resources, this will tell you kind of where you're getting your resources and whether or not you have a positive or negative flow. And if you have a positive flow, it'll tell you which house is sending them to you. Houses are obligated to send a certain percentage of their science points, their administration points, and their resources to you every turn. And that's called their contribution. Essentially, the higher the relationship, the better relationship you have with that house, the more they will send you. If you have a very poor relationship, like a war relationship or a hostile, they may not send you anything. And this is a real key part of the game. I mean, this is the most fundamental part. You cannot win a game of alliance going rogue and just forget the other houses. I'm gonna colonize and build a bunch of fleets, and you will not be able to do it. And I mean, you can try. I mean, I guess maybe somebody can, but the game is designed for you to use the other houses at least somewhat to kind of fill in the gaps of what you need, particularly when you start building. Right now, if you hit turn, next turn, next turn, next turn, the game is going to kind of go on without you. You'll maintain, but you won't do anything. You won't grow, and eventually your power will wane because the populace doesn't like you not doing anything. And so if your power ever hits zero, then you basically are a figurehead and the game's over. So I look at this screen to kind of see. So okay, my budget points are low and my basics low. All right, so let me go back to my. Let's go ahead and hover over the budget points. They're right next. They're on the upper left, right next to the house panel. There you go. All right. So who is contributing? Well, you're contributing the vast majority of them. So Van Rigel's contributing a fair amount, but they're also they have tension, so they're not going to contribute very much. Again, Iloa has a cooperative relationship, but they're not contributing much. So essentially, unfortunately, the one house that likes you isn't a very good house. They're not contributing much. So you may have to go, okay, I guess I need to get Van Rigel, in a better relationship, so that they'll start contributing more. So if you also look at your trade income, you see you get budget points from trade. 25% of all your trade income goes into the budget points. And then the tax efficiency is really the biggest thing. So each part of government has what's called a prime. It's essentially like the cabinet leader for that particular area. And right now, your finance prime is not a very good one. Let's go ahead and click on the finance nexus, or the economic nexus. It's down. Yeah, those are all what are called your nexi, and those are kind of your departments of the empire. So this is who's leading your empire. Go ahead and just click don't. Yeah, okay. Now, you see his prime suitability is medium. You really don't know that much about him. There, you can see a question mark under his power, but clearly he's not very good at his job. That's another big thing. Characters have an amount of intel. You don't know everything about them right away. You sometimes have to get to know them and understand their strengths and what they're good at. But right now, your financial prime isn't very good. And if you want to bump up your budget points, an easy way is to find a better one. However, if you fire the financial prime, if you hover over their house banner, so this is Halcyon Musharraf. So they're already not very happy with you. They already have a tension relationship with you. If you fire a prime, that's going to guarantee to take a big hit in your relationship. And of course, the former financial prime won't be too happy either. So you have knock-on effects. Let's go ahead and click on the financial prime. Just click on his portrait. So this is the character screen. So again, you don't know very much about this character at all. Right now, if you click on the tab, Rob, in the upper right that has the little eye, that's your intel. Right now, you have a low level of intel on the character. So there's a few things you can do to get to know him better. You can spend time with him. There are some character actions that you can take, but those cost you action points. Or you can assign an inquisitor to this character. Go ahead and click on it to kind of tail them and kind of get to learn more about this character. So you can actually assign. Let's just go ahead and do that. It doesn't hurt anything. You've got 3 inquisitors just sitting around doing nothing. All right, so now you can see they have a little inquisitor icon on the top right of their portrait. So, all right, let's go ahead and get to know this guy. Let's go to the action tab. It's the one. There you go. Character actions. Okay, so right now, because you don't really know this character, you see where there's the number of eyes on each action. You don't have the intel to do pretty much anything right now, so you can't give a speech. You don't have enough intel. If you hover over the actions, it'll tell you why. So right now, all you can really do is spend time with the character, or repair them. Clearly, they're not fully healthy, and that's something that will give a big boost, but it can be very expensive. So let's not do that because that takes money out of your treasury. Let's spend some time with the character. Go ahead and click on this. Now, this does take an action point. So whenever most actions, most things you do in the game take a certain amount of time, and that represented by action points. So this character um, clearly is not, even though you don't know your relationship, clearly they're not super happy with you. Um, so essentially, their trust has decreased by 3, and their grudge has decreased by 2. So it wasn't a great interaction, but it's not terrible. So essentially, you know that this character is probably kind of hostile towards you, just from this interaction. Again, the game doesn't flat out tell you, but you can read between the lines, and that's something we're really proud of with Alliance. We have a very well developed conversation engine. The characters will speak kind of in their voice depending on their rank and their how they feel towards you, and so you can glean a lot about, even if you don't know much about a character, just from how you interact with them. Um, so at this point, there's a couple of things you can do. You can either accept the denial and move on and go do other things, or you can enter what's called oratory combat. Now, right now, you see the skills on the upper right or on the upper left by your portrait, Rob? Those there? Yeah. If you hover over them. So these are your 5 primary skills. So you have rhetoric, persuasion, perception, intimidation, and likability. And so each character has an archetype. Let's go ahead and start negotiation. This is something you won't win, but I just want to show players, and this is something that we're kind of working on too. We have a whole mini game inside of Alliance, so you don't just take no for an answer. If you build your skills up enough, you can actually try to negotiate with a character and get them to do what you want. Totally optional. You don't have to do it, but especially with house leaders, when you ask them to do big things, like let you fire one of their governors, or ask for a bigger contribution, they're going to be very reticent. So you may have to do this. So you have 3 different strategies. Now, right now, your vizier is telling you, I don't think you should be taking on this character until you've improved your oratory skills. And he's absolutely right. You shouldn't be, because you don't have any skills. But this is showing players the game, so you're going to do it because it's fun. So right now, you have 1 skill in each strategy. You have 1 in reason, 1 in appeal, and 1 in browbeat. So it doesn't matter which one you pick, because you don't have an advantage in any one of the others. You can see you all start. You're starting. You have what's called focus points, and those are basically like energy. Different moves cost energy. Some moves don't cost any. And right now, you only know 1 move. It's called impassioned appeal. So you can actually, and there should be a hover there, but I guess we need to hook it up. So if you look on the upper right, where you see the blue bar, that's called patience. So that is essentially how many points you have. That's essentially their hit points. But when that runs out, you lose, because you're trying to convince them to do something. They're not trying to convince you. It's a one-way conversation. So when they run out of patience, it's over. And if you have a really bad roll, or you have a really bad move, a critical failure, then they could lose a lot of patience. And there's some moves that let you regain patience. There's moves that let you kind of pause, but you haven't unlocked any of those yet. So it's going to be a very quick. So go ahead and just click Impassioned Appeal. So you'll see you get the roll and critical failure, because your target roll is actually your likability, which is a 12. So to succeed, you actually have to roll a 12 or less. So that's why I said you're probably not going to do it. So you see, you have the little conversation, critical fail. You see, you lost an additional patience, and you would have lost 1 persuasion point. So the bar on the right, if you hover over the bar next to the patience, on the other side, on the left of patience, there we go. So that's the persuasion. So that's the bar you got to fill in order to convince this character to do what you want. So basically, the more powerful the character, the more bars there'll be, and you gain these persuasion points from successful moves. So it's a pretty basic system. The power is really in the moves and the strategies, but right now you just don't have any, because you're just an 18-year-old that doesn't know what he's doing. So that's really much it. So go ahead, and I would just go ahead and end the meeting, hit space, and then just end the meeting, because you're not going to win. But that's kind of a cool thing that I assure you almost no other 4X has. the ability to really get in, and the archetypes really matter. You don't know their archetypes and personality, but the different strategies have a different effect depending on the archetype. So if they're a cowardly archetype, intimidation will work very well. But if they're sort of a blowhard, then persuasion may work better. And there's kind of a triangle. So it's a fairly deep system. It's something that we continue to work on, but it's that version's already in the game, and we're going to be kind of expanding as we get closer to early access. So to that, you still have a bad financial prime. So you can actually fire him, and let's do that. Let's have some fun. Let's just go ahead and fire him. So click on his portrait again, and go to actions again, and now you're going to go to hostile actions on the tab. Okay, so these are things. So you're going to remove from post. We're actually going to add like a direct link onto the portraits to fire people. It's just kind of a quality of life thing we've discovered. All right, so now you're going to pick a new financial prime. It doesn't have to be a minimum power. That's something we're not doing right now. So one thing you're going to want to look at is their leadership. So if you click on the tabs on the left, if you click on the little crest on the tabs on the left, it's above the icon with the tag. Yeah. So this gives you their skills and their leadership. So leadership is the most important thing a character can have. The higher it goes from 0 to 10, and essentially the higher their leadership, the better they are at everything. The better governors they are, the better viceroys they are. So essentially it amplifies their skills, whether they're bad or good. So it's actually not good to have a 5 leadership character with a 10 a very low finance, because essentially they are amplifying ignorance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not matter, you know what I mean? It's not a matter of just finding all the best stats. You have to see how they kind of fit together. So you want someone with high leadership, but you also want someone that's good at what their role is. In this case, you want someone with high leadership and high financial skill. So you can actually sort. You can sort, there's that. You can also sort by, you can click again. Okay, so right now you just don't have a very big pool, because there just aren't that many people that have good finance. And you cannot put a house leader in this role. So you can't put house leaders or house successors. Those tend to be your best characters, but you should save them for projects. So you have to decide, okay, is it worth firing this person and upsetting this house to put someone that only might be a little bit better? But at the same time, a three leadership is pretty good, but a 2 finance is not good. So you may, if this were a real game, I would say you probably want to wait for someone better to come along. New courtiers come along periodically, and they kind of, they have different skills, and you may get someone better. Plus, characters gain experience throughout the game, throughout their lives. The older they are, generally, the better stats they have. But of course, if they die, then they die, and you may have to scramble and find someone else. So for now, let's go ahead and put the courtier creator Grudzinsk in. Okay, so that's going to make Milok happy, because you see their house Milok is going to be pleased that you're putting someone that was a courtier and now you're making them a prime. Like, wow, that's like taking someone off the street and making them a cabinet member of the government. So it's quite a jump, but you're going to do it because your other person is really bad and because you want to make Milok happy. So you'll go ahead and accept. So now your new courtier, he is now a courtier, and he's very unhappy, although you can't tell because you don't have any intel on him. So you can close that. So now you'll notice your tax. I'm sorry, your see, your empire budget has now gone up a little bit. It's 1%. Your tax efficiency is still 75%, and that's because his financial is so low. So, but the budget has gone up. You're bringing in a little bit more money. So what tax effectiveness means is that you have all the planets and the systems that are taxed a certain amount. You can actually change that tax rate. There's a button to do that right there. But essentially, the more you bring in, there's a sort of efficiency. The better your prime is, the more efficient they are at collecting those taxes, up to over 100%, if they're basically so efficient that they're grifting their own citizens. So it's really good to try and find a good financial prime early if you can. because otherwise you're not going to bring in a lot of money. All right, so the rest of the screens here are they're helpful. You do have what are called designations. That's sort of your high level ability to change planets and systems, what they do. So a big part of Alliance is that you don't build things directly. You don't build farms. You don't build mines. You don't build, individual sectors. What you do is the three ways that you change what a planet does is you bring in a viceroy that's good at, say you want a planet to be better at farming. You have to make sure it's a good farming planet. Of course, you don't want to put it on like a lava planet or an irradiated planet. But then you want to bring in a viceroy who's good at farming. And so their skills determine what the planet will start focusing on, because they are farmers and they want to build more farms. And the last thing is called designations. You can actually, as emperor, you can designate planets and systems to be one of these 8 categories. And it's kind of a brute force approach. It destroys certain sectors on the planet. And actually, we can kind of look. Let's go ahead and back out and let's look at New Terra. Let's go ahead and go to the map. Let's click on a province. Click on the province. Okay, and then click on a system. There we go. And then click on Vigil. That's the other one. Yeah. Okay. So this is the planet. So you can see there's a lot of detail on the planet. So if you click on one of the regions, Rob, on the right, you see each region has people that live there. Right now, it's a forest region. It's a megalopolis. So the smallest unit in the game is called pops. There are thousands and thousands of pops. If you've ever played Victoria or maybe Imperator Rome, you might be familiar with the pop concept. It's essentially a type of people that do a specific task, and they have wants, they have needs, they have they get angry, they have popular support and fear, and they have planetary happiness. So a big part of your reign is kind of keeping these people happy on a broad level. But if you look at the designation of this planet, you see right now it's ADM, so it's an administrative designation. Go to the economic mode, command mode. It's the mode on the far left where right now you're in overview. Yep, there you go. Okay, and then click on the second from the bottom where you see like there you go. So this is kind of seeing what they're building. So this is their sector focus. And again, you don't control it directly as the emperor, because if you think about in most games, why on earth would an emperor, why would a handpicked servant of a deity be worried about putting down farms and saying, hey, we need to build a new mine and a new whatever? And it's really, we felt it was outside the scope of what an emperor would be doing. So instead, we look at it at a higher level. So you see right now the sector focus is admin, which is good. They want to build administrative. And you can see admin, it's going to take them 8 cycles to build a new sector. Now, if you click on over to go ahead and click on a region again, Rob, on the left. You can leave. Okay, now you see the sectors. Each view has a different view, and you can see in this one, there's 8 potential sectors, but only 5 of them are developed. This is where pops actually live. So you see you have a farming sector, you have a manufacturing sector, and 3 admin sectors. So you can tell that this planet is designed, and it's basically focused on putting out a lot of admin. And so as you control, people ask, well, how do I control what I do? How do I actually do anything in the game? Well, so I'm showing kind of the most basic building blocks. Okay, you see, okay, these are the people here. And you can see you have a lot of government sectors. You can see that this viceroy. Go ahead and hover over the planetary viceroy. You may not know. Okay, so we don't know that much about them, so that doesn't help. But most likely you would see they have a pretty high government rating, because that's something that essentially the higher they are in one of those skills, the more important it is to them. So the more they will focus on it, within the constraints of the designation and the planet type. So again, if the planet type is not suitable, it won't go very well. I mean, you can try to farm on a lava world. They'll try, but it won't go very well. But if you farm on an ocean world, it'll go very well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So now that we have an idea of like what's going on each of our planets, or like we can start to look at what's going on our planets. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, now we're kind of early in this game, so I understand now. When I've been playing, it's normally time to set the budget, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the things you'll have to do on the first turn. So you can do that now. You can actually go ahead and go ahead and click the budget. All right, so right now you have 9 budget points. Again, this is derivated from your tax and your trade. So you can see how many, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but you see you have each circle has a certain amount of chunks. So the more chunks, the more it costs to actually fully fund that particular part. So you have science, you have your intel department, you have domestic, you have what's called logistical network, which is how you get from system to system and constellation to constellation that has to be kept up. And then you have the internal economy, and then military. So right now you don't have nearly enough points to fund probably anything except your LGN. I recommend always funding your LGN and your economy, always, because if your LGN starts being less effective, your trades take longer and they become less effective, and then you start moving slower. If you start moving fleets, especially if you go to war, the LGN at lower efficiencies is much slower. And then for economy, if you don't put money into your economy, your planets will start degrading. Their economies will start degrading. So you always want to try that. So now, oh no, I don't have any more budget points. What do I do? So you have a treasury. Right now, you have 1.9K billion credits in your house treasury. So this is basically your house treasury. You can use it. It's for various things. You don't want it to get too low because you'll find throughout the game you need money for a lot of things, and it's handy to have, especially with events. But for now, you can sort of push it and use it for the budget, and you can also pull money from, and that's how you can. One way you can replenish. If you have a huge overage and you don't want to fund the budget very much, you can pull it and put it into your treasury. Although your people won't be very happy. If you look on the left, you see your primes are kind of watching what you're doing. Right now, none of them are very happy except your financial prime is pretty darn happy that you're funding him. So you can get a real time sort of feedback on how they feel about your budgeting, and it does have very negative effects. All right, so what I would do, I would put about 10. I would pull about 10 points. Okay, you've already got. Okay, you got 9. That's fine. So now I would fund a little bit of science. I would put about 3 or 4 points in science, and then I would put a little bit of points into your spies, intel. If you don't put points into your intel, your quizzers start leaving. Their loyalty drops, and eventually they can leave. And then I would put a few points in military. Don't put any domestic for now, just because that's kind of, it's good to have, and the more you put in, the higher their popular support goes. But right now you just can't afford it. So you're going to lose a little bit of popular support because you're not funding, Medicare and the social services. They're going to be quite unhappy. But you really don't have enough money because you don't want to burn your treasury early. That's something that new players, they play. And, oh, I got to fill all the circles. No, you don't. No, you don't, and you shouldn't even try. You should pick priorities and start building up your economy slow. Remember, this is all by design. You're not starting out as a typical 4X where you've got one scout ship and one transport ship and a plucky colonist and around the star, and you don't know where anything else is. No, you've got a fully established empire with fully established economy, fully established trade, fully established relations. You're just plopped down in the middle of it. All right, so go ahead and confirm. All right, you see how they feel about things. Basically, if they're most of them are not very happy. So in your financial prime, you don't actually know. Again, you don't have the intel, so you don't know the relationship right now. But they're happy, which is good. Okay, so go ahead and get out of that. All right, now you can end the turn. So now you get an event. All right. I don't know if you want to read through it.
Yeah, I'll quickly read it, actually. At the back of the shielded ground car, you page through the week's petitions. Nothing of particular interest. Mostly local problems to which your staff have already lined up local solutions of varying degrees of adequacy. You gaze absently out the window at the passing buildings. Your head hits the far window before you register the thud of the explosion. Furious, thick-tasting pain bursts through your skull as the car bounces over the barrier and comes to a rest on the slant of the embankment beyond. For a moment, you're just dumbly livid at the rudeness of the interruption, before the reality begins to trickle into your ringing brain. Someone just tried to kill me. It must have been a hell of a bomb to get through the car shields. You semi-stagger to the door, bracing yourself against the ceiling, and open it, letting it swing wide. Your Grace, 2 of your guards are running up and catch you before you fall. Others are hurrying to form a perimeter around the wrecks. You steady yourself on them. Your Grace, we should get you to safety right now. You look to your right. The car ahead of you looks like it took a worse hit than yours did. It's on its side, crumpled like a can, and the guards from the lead vehicle are frantically struggling to get the one accessible door open. So we can say yes, safety, or I'm fine, and try to help the wounded.
It's up to you.
I'm getting the hell out of there.
Depends how branches. So even if you pick something, it may not guarantee a result.
Gotcha. The guard barks in order. The 2 of them slip arms under your thighs and begin behind your shoulders and bodily carry you at a run into the waiting APC. As you go, you look over your shoulder to see the bodies of your driver and aides being carried out of the vehicles. You barely register the APC peeling out and speeding back along the groundway, or the medic shining lights in your eyes and taping probes to your forehead. You're safe, for now, but at what cost? I was the target, not them. They died because of me. Alright, my spirit's really low. Great.
So you can read the top and see what happened.
Alright, so you are injured, your spirit has fallen significantly, and you have gained 20 of each of dishonor and humanity. This is because I decided to run away.
Basically.
Alright.
So now you see the beginnings of the RPG elements. So we sort of juiced, this is an assassination event. This would normally fire when your popular support is quite a bit lower, but we wanted, for the demo, we wanted to kind of get it out there and for people to kind of see it. Now, you won't die. The first 3 events, you're guaranteed not to die. But for that, if you fire an assassination event, there's a chance that you can die.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that depends a large part on either a assassination plot against you, or the general populace. And the events have long-lasting consequences. They can have any number, all the way to from a planet being destroyed to just a quiet reflection by the pool, and you gain a little spirit. So this is kind of the summary of what happened. So your power went up, and that's kind of a thing. But your spirit, you can see, dropped quite a bit. Your fear increased and your popular support decreased. So you can kind of see, and that's your empire popular support. And then on the right, you can see changes to relationships. So you can see Iloa, because remember how you put one of their people in to be a prime? Well, they like that. But the person you kicked out didn't like it. The house that you kicked out didn't like it so much. So they took a fairly big hit. So you can kind of see turn to turn, what effects your actions have on the houses and on the characters. So go ahead and hit continue. So good old fashioned turn screen. This will be a little more interesting before early access. All right. So now I want to take a look. I know we don't have that much time left, but now things are starting to happen. So you can see now your spirit, if you look in the upper left, it's a dark red because you had some very bad things happen. Go ahead and click on your character. This is your character screen. You'll be spending a lot of time here. This is kind of your math. This is like your character sheet. Which is, again, very uncommon for a 4X. You have your health here, your life expectancy. You have, which looks like that should be a lot higher. That might be a bug, but your spirit is very low. Now your guilt, you see where you have guilt there? So your guilt is moderate. That means that you are going to be taking a spirit hit because, again, not a huge one, but you added a fair amount of dishonor. And so you can actually look at your guilt. If you go to the next screen, or go ahead and click on that. All right, go to your personality. All right, so you can see you've added 20 inhumanity and 20 dishonor. So that's giving you essentially 160 spirit. And these numbers, we're going to kind of refine these numbers. They don't really mean much as a number, but that's pretty high. So you're dealing with a fairly significant action, and so you're going to have to do some things to kind of assuage your guilt. Now this here shows and we're going to actually redo the screen completely. We're actually getting rid of the personality traits, and we're going to replace them with perks that you get for fear, popular support, and your power, and because that's a more public sort of who you are, and you'll get positive perks the higher those are. All right, let's go to the next one, the little oratory. go to actually go to actions. That's fine. Go to personal actions. There you go. All right, so here's some things you can do. Now you see, oh, I have all these things I could do, but unfortunately, most of them are darkened out because you have to have what are called epiphanies. So just like an RPG, you have many skill trees. Skill trees, as you do things in the game, as you talk to people, as you create projects, buildings, go through events, you gain XP, which eventually gives you a personal development point. And you unlock these actions by using the personal development points in what's called the Epiphany tree, which I'll show you in a minute. So right now, the only one you have available to you is to rest. It costs you 1 AP, and there's a 2 cooldown. Most actions have a cooldown period as well, so you can't spam actions. So go ahead and click rest, and so you get a little pop up saying what happened. So you gained a little bit of spirit, a little bit. All right. And all right, so now go ahead and go back to the the second tab, the personalities. Okay, go to Epiphanies. All right, so this is kind of the heart of the RPG system. So Epiphanies are who you are as a person. As an 18-year-old, you're basically a blank slate. And so you have 3 categories. You have openness, predictability, and habitus. So habitus is kind of how well you take care of your body. You know, do you party a lot, or are you diligent? Do you study a lot, or do you like to just are you just kind of a town clown? Um, and then you have openness and closedness. You know, are you a more open personality, or are you more kind of an introverted person? And then you have predictability. Are you reassuring, or are you unpredictable? And so you can only go down one path. So once you pick one of these paths in each category, that's it. So you kind of have to decide, okay, who am I going to be? So let's say you want to be a party animal. So that's Epicurean. Okay, so you want to click on that. So this is the party animal skill set here. So if you click on that, you'll go ahead. Now see, you're permanently locked, diligent, and robust. So from now on, you're basically a party animal. So, and you kind of go down this tree, and each what's called an arc skill has up to 6 tiers within it. So there's about 400 different skills and nodes within the tree. But you lock a lot of them off depending on how you play. And that's what gives the game a lot of replayability. You can combine with your personality and the way you kind of set up your epiphanies. You may have a completely different play experience. And again, that's something that's unheard of in a 4X game. And that's why we really, talk about it more as an RPG as much as a 4X.
And is it wise to spend all of my PDP now?
Well, I mean, right now, early on, I would say yes, I would put more in Epiphanies because those give you more direct benefits. But if you know you're going to be doing a lot of oratory combat, you'd want to put points into those skills. So we can actually go to the oratory skill tree. You can actually go back. Yeah, so go back to the, oratory skills. Okay, so these are remember the 5 skills that you have, and these are your 3 strategies. So each strategy has its own skill tree. Now, these are not mutually exclusive. You can have all your skills in browbeat and appeal and reason. You can fill them all up, but it takes a lot of PvP to do that. So, you can look at the different moves, and within each arc skill, you see just like oratory, they have kind of a mini path within it. This is also something we're probably going to tweak a little bit because right now there's only one path. We think that's a little boring, so we're going to kind of make it more of sort of you go through tiers and you'll get some kind of random one of 3 different bonuses depending on your tier. So it's not just like a one path thing. But you see, you're already picking up, so you're already level 3. So if you were to do an oratory combat, you would already have a level 3 of Passion of Appeal, which is a lot more powerful. And then, you can go back, you see you get bonuses. So if you go back on the arrow, if you click on the arrow, you see now you've got 14 rhetoric instead of 12. So this is one way that you can increase these skills. You can also increase them through events. You can also increase them through certain epiphanies. So the last, that is the relationship tab, and this just shows you more expanded. This also is where the circle of trust will go. That's one of the last concepts we have to add. But this basically shows you your closest allies, your closest friends, worst enemies, and strongest threats. So this is another place you want to go pretty early. If you look down at the portrait below you, that's basically your arch enemy for all intents and purposes. Um, so that's your war prime, but that's not a great state of affairs. So hopefully you won't be doing any military
Yeah.
because if the war prime hates you, they can refuse to to work for you, and they can just quit. So that's kind of an interesting wrinkle. But if you go, let's try something. Let's go to your closest friends. Doesn't matter which one. Pick the one that's got a lot of power. Okay, your house successor. Okay, you guys are buddies. Okay, let's go to the actions. Let's go to actions. Oh, you don't have enough AP. Let's go ahead next turn because the thing I was going to say, if you spend time with your best friends, that improves your spirit. Just like in real life, hang out with your best buds, and it makes you feel better. Time. Okay, so now let's go down. Okay, so yeah, go ahead and do that. All right, and go to actions and spend time with character. And now this time, because y'all are friends, you'll have a much different conversation.
Very good. So now my trust and my grudge are both have gone in good directions.
Yes. Grudge is super important. The higher a grudge, the more likely a character is to plot against you and possibly even try to assassinate you. So it's very bad to have a high power character have a bad relationship and a high grudge. So that's a state of affairs you want to avoid. All right, go ahead and end the meeting. So if you go out of there and go back to your main screen, you're now hover over your character. Okay, so your spirit's still very low, but there's a chance. It's not always guaranteed, but there's a chance it can increase. So now go down to you see on the lower left where you've got a bunch of icons. Go to the blue icon. Those are your comms. So these are people that are request some of your time. So you can see right now because your spirit's so low, you only have one action point, and this is why spirit is so important to keep up. You basically are so depressed you barely feel like doing anything. So let's go to the demand. You notice there's a demand and a request. Let's see what's that demand all about. Oh, it's from a house leader, a house that doesn't like you very much. Oh, that's interesting. Their response urgency is high. Let's see what they have to say. All right.
So we grow weary of watching your riches of materials while House Van Rigel can barely mine enough to keep our own people supplied. How are we ever to get ahead? Tell us that. We need 400 basic materials to help offset this unfortunate imbalance immediately.
Oh no. Well, remember what you're short of?
Yeah, basic materials.
400 is a lot, and you've only got 2.1. That's like almost 20% of your stockpile. However, so here's the thing about a demand: if you give in and you give them the materials, you'll get a pretty nice bump relationship with this house and with her. But you're going to lose some power because you're seen as giving in publicly to a house leader, which is supposedly less powerful than you. But if you choose not to give in, your power will increase slightly. But this leader is going to be very upset with you. Right now, they're shunning you. But they'll probably drop to an even lower, probably vengeance or vendetta, which is not good for your house. So it's up to you. There's not a right or wrong, but it depends on. I mean, you went ahead and gave. Okay, so you see your power dropped a little bit, but now when you go back to the house leader, you can actually click right on the house. You can click on the house sigil in the upper left.
Which one were they again? This is.
Yep. Okay, and then if you click on her, just click on her directly. Okay, you'll see your little bar. That's your trust bar. You see it went up a little bit. So, and you also gained, and we're going to add a bar to show the green and red on the hover, but you also gained about 3 relation with the house. Your house relationship went up 3 points. And you can see that by hovering over the sigil. You just hover over the sigil and see where it says, it says 36. So it dropped, but it came up a little bit from the beginning of this current turn because you did that.
Awesome.
So this is a house you'll, and so these are sort of the big choices. Now, before we go, I want to show you projects and how to explore, because projects are like a really big part of the game. So let's go. What house do you want to try to make nice with a house?
Yeah, Van Rigel, since.
Okay, so let's go to overview or go to demographic, which is the little looks like the Congress building. Click on that, and then go to the banner, the sigil, because you'll be able to see who owns what. If you go to the sub mode, so you've got projects, and then on right next to it, like, okay, you've got, yeah, there you go. Now go up one. These are sub modes. Okay, there we go. So now you can see they own these two systems. They own Frank Juma and C. Parker. So you can pick one. Doesn't really matter. All right, so let's go to Quam. C. Parker 2 is it's a planet that they own but is not developed, so there's no point. So now let's do a project. Actually, we can't do it. Go ahead to the next turn. You're out of AP.
Yeah.
So go ahead to the next turn. All right. I forget your spirit's so low you can't do much.
We're just gonna go ahead and drive this so quickly.
So now you notice you're getting events that are lifting up your spirit. That's not random. So the game will sort of lead you just when you feel like all hope is lost. You'll start getting these different events. There will be hundreds of events in the game, and that some of them are multi-branch. Some of them have events that fire afterwards. They kind of tell a story. I don't want to spoil a lot, but that's a big part of the game. All right, so go to economic main mode. Okay, and then go to the project. It's the very last sub mode. All right, so these are all the different projects. Now, a lot of these are going to be gated when we finish putting in the new tech tree. About 60% of these are going to be gated when you start. So tech is going to be a lot more important. But for now, you want to look at the house and go, okay, what do they really need right now? What is their... So let's click on their sigil. You can open up their house. Yeah, just click on Van Rigel's sigil. There you go.
Which one is it? This one? Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Okay. So their focus is on manufacturing. Their house ambition right now is power. So they want things that will improve the power of their holdings, basically increase. So we would call this the exploitation of their planet. So they will be happy with things that improve their planets. If you go to the economy, which is the next tab, right there, yep, you can see right now their economy is okay, but 16 billion credits isn't great. And go to the next tab. This will tell you a little bit more the activity. So this tells you if you have enough intel. So go to their ambitions. This is the projects that you know of. Okay, they want to improve their economy. Oh, how great. So if you do projects that improve their economy, then they're going to be a lot happier with you. They're going to be they will appreciate that. So let's try and improve their economy on their planet. So let's get out. Okay, so invest in economic prosperity. That's always a good one. That's kind of it increases their development level, their planetary development level, which is directly how a planet is taxed. The higher the PDL and the more pops, the more taxes you get. Pretty basic. All right. So now their viceroy it's going to take 6 turns for them to do it. But when it's finished, they're going to be a lot happier with you, and you're going to get a power boost because you see there's a certain amount of power. So now if you go now that you did something, go down to the comms. You see that now you got 7 comms. Remember where you were to just do. Okay, there you go. Okay, see now you've got some comm messages. You got a lot of comm messages, and these don't cost anything to read. These are just quick comms on like a televisor. So these don't actually cost you any AP, and you see the AP cost is not there. So let's just look at a comm. So click on it. Answer comm. See, it takes no AP. So this guy isn't very happy with you.
That's putting it lightly. Well, Emperor Hanukkah, another month, another failure, I suppose. The Celestial Empire needs a strong house like Kareli Finn to keep order and protect us from the threats of the galaxy. Not you. Never you. Well, look at that. That's a nice response, too. I like that.
When you talk to other characters, when you take comms that are negative, that does impact your spirit. But when you take positive comms, it affects it positively. So hopefully you kind of see by now how kind of the RPG elements are really intertwined.
Yes.
And it's not a matter of, build a mine, build a farm. There's a lot of detail under the surface. We haven't even gotten to exploration. Can we just do a star exploration real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, go to the go back to the main. Okay, or you can do that. Either way, that's another way to do it. Click on it. So go to exploration options. So exploration, there's expeditions. There's construction expeditions, which can construct outposts and logistical network nodes, which is how you connect to other constellations. And then there's scouting expeditions. And so right now you've got one scout fleet that you can pick. Now all expeditions and operations cost op points. So right now you have 12 op points. These are generated from shipyards and administrative centers, and also a little bit from your ADM. It's a percentage. So when you run out of op points, they're basically tied up while you have operations or expeditions running. So when they're tied up, you can't do anymore, and you don't get very many to start. So this, as you can see, this fleet costs 6 OP to deploy. Different fleets cost, the higher, the bigger, the more powerful the fleet, the more op points they would cost to deploy in an operation. And this is how military is conducted. But it also does the same for exploration. So go ahead and click on the scout fleet. You have enough. Just click on it. Okay. So the duration is 6. It's going to cost 6 OP. You can see right now their scouting efficiency isn't very good because you haven't funded the military very much. So if you don't fund the military, surprise, surprise, they're not going to be very effective. That big bar, that orange bar that's kind of in the middle of your fleet, you can see it's on its lowest level because you haven't funded them. Oh, and the admiral's not very good. You can see they have a low military skill, and a level 1 leadership, and you can put better admirals in charge. You can actually sack your admirals and put better admirals in charge in the military nexus, so you can micro a little bit more if you want to, but it's okay. I mean, we just want to get the exploration off the ground. So go ahead and initiate. All right. So now they're off to go see the system. So now you can back out, and then you'll be able to see if you went into the Intel sub mode, Intel command mode, and then go to the expedition. It's at the bottom, down at the very bottom has the expedition, like below the Inquisitor one. On the sub, you can see now, you see that it's going to be 6 turns, and you actually be able to see the fleet moving if you stayed in that mode. So what will happen is the fleet will go, it will explore all of the planets. You see right now some of them are kind of holographic. You know there's a planet there, but you don't know what kind it is. As you gain more intel, those planets will start to fill in, and you'll know the type, and eventually you'll know the size and the class. And you can do a surface expedition to do what's called max intel, to actually see like the amount of minerals in the planet's surface. So if you really want to, once you have honed in on a planet you might put an outpost on, you would want to do a surface expedition. You don't have to, but it's a way. Outposts are fairly expensive, and if you mess up in one, that's a fair amount of resources that you've lost. So you want to try and find a good place to put them. That's the biggest part of growing your empire. And as you gain more technology, you're able to put outposts on different kinds of systems. Eventually, gas giants and brown dwarfs. So, gosh, I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface. But
Oh, I was actually kind of just gonna go into that a little bit. I mean, like, I do feel like we're barely scratching the surface here. And so, as you move into early access, what do you think are your main hurdles in making this a playable game, so that people understand what they're doing and what their goals are?
just making sure we have a good tutorial. We feel like the goals are going to really help with that, because all of the tier 1 are tutorial type of tasks, and they cover the gamut. The tooltips have come a really long way. We continue to work on those. The encyclopedia has been a big help. Really, just continue to work on the onboarding. That's kind of been once we put the rain system in and we fully activate the new military system, and we put in the circle of trust. All of the systems that we have planned for early access will be in the game. So we're talking, just a matter of weeks until that happens. So all the time after that is going to be devoted to, fixing bugs, performance, and onboarding. We run several betas about what people want. Obviously it's a very deep game, and there's many different ways to go about solving a problem, which makes it a tough game to tutorial, because you can't just say, okay, you start at point A, then you go to point B, then you go to point C. There's many ways to get to point C. So that's been a big challenge for us in how do we show the player, we call it the red thread, of kind of winding them through the game systems while still making sure they understand that they have a huge amount of freedom. How their character is, how they sort of, how they manage, the skills that they select. There's not a right or wrong way to play. It's really about the experience. I mean, yes, you can do a lot of dumb things. Yeah, there's a bug. Um, but part of the fun, I mean, we'd almost even say it's like a roguelike, except you can die at the end. It's not indefinite. It's not like Dwarf Fortress where you just keep going as long as you can. There is an end point. So, um, really it's just about onboarding players and really getting them to see that you do things differently than a typical 4X, especially using projects and expeditions and operations as opposed to just, clicking and dragging your fleets around and that sort of thing, and then really managing through your viceroys and your governors, and that takes some getting used to. But we think when what we've seen, what we know, we from our beta testers and people that have played the game for a while, once they understand what they're doing, they're like, wow, this is really neat. This is, it's a different take on the 4X and how I control things. But it's just getting them there to that point and making sure that they know the game won't abandon them and they have a lot of help.
Well, Steve, this all looks great. I mean, I've been following this game for I think as long as you've been developing it, really, and to see just how close it is to being something that's really just super playable and really deep is really exciting. So I really appreciate you taking the time to show us even just the bare minimum. Like I feel like you said, we're kind of just scratching the surface here. So I really appreciate you taking the time to show us a little bit about what Alliance of the Sacred Sons is about.
Well, I appreciate you having me and thank you for letting me talk about it.
Absolutely, and hopefully we can get you on at one point, and we can do like a full let's play, even like just a couple episodes where maybe you help us decide some of the decisions that we're making, and show us a little bit about maybe some strategies that we can incorporate into our gameplay, and maybe even help people kind of onboard themselves through a let's play.
I would love that. With the military and range system integrated, it's going to really add a lot to the gameplay experience and give you a direction.
Awesome, Steve. Really liking what you're doing here, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Until next time, keep exploring.